right, everybody. So
Nice.
welcome to the 2023 Mount Tam Psychedelic Integration Jam. I'm your host, Daniel, the founder of Tam Integration. We offer education and trainings and things like that. And we're here today to celebrate good psychedelic practice from preparation to integration, everything in between. And we are here with the great and powerful Farmboy Slim. Who is a harm reduction educator on social media. His main following is on TikTok, and we're very, very happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Okay, yeah. So, like he said, I am Farmboy Slim, a psychedelic harm reductionist. I just want to go over a little bit of, about who I am real quick and what my goal here is. I'm committed to responsible conversation and use regarding psychedelics, and that's, yeah, that's most of it. My credentials here, I would say, are 15 years of psychedelic experience, psilocybin focused, with solo, group trip sitting, things like that. All ranges, all doses across the spectrum. And yes, least importantly, but nothing, is that I've garnered about 500,000 followers by talking about it. And I'm proud of that, but it's not, the biggest deal. My mission and goal here is to help ensure the safety of an emergent psychedelic population in the age of mainstream psychedelic use and on the brink of our legalization. A little bit about me regarding mushrooms. The moment that I learned what mushrooms were or knew about tripping, I always knew I would. Like how, a lot of people know if they want tattoos or not. It's either they're for you, they're not, or you try them and you pretty much know right after you try them. Yeah. So let's see. Let's go back to the chat real quick here and see what's going on. Let's see. How's it going, guys? Seth NYC took half an eighth on the way to the movies. I later fell into the carpet and couldn't get out. Oh, I've been there, man. I've fallen into a carpet myself. Hello, Tash from Los Angeles. I can't remember if this was my first time because it was at least 20 years ago, but it was the first time I've ever seen nature breathe and change form. That's beautiful. I just remember feeling so loved and accepted by Earth. Oh, that's wonderful. That's great to hear. Cool. Well, I want to get into why I trip. I want to kick things off. For me, it's basically sets me right. Everyone has different reasons for tripping. Everyone has different uses, but it just generally realigns me, for the almost magical ability granted by an experience to put parts of myself and my life back into focus and alignment. Just one small experience can help me out for months at a time. When I do trip, I've taken all kinds of doses up to half an ounce, and across all of them, I find none so beneficial as about 1.25 grams, so 1.25 grams. And the reason for this is because for me, it is the perfect zone to be super cognizant of yourself and the experience while being able to reap the benefits of the psilocybin. It takes you to a super, easy place where you can work out problems and questions you have in your life. If you have a goal in mind for the experience, it almost completely removes the chance of rabbit holing or blasting off. I call it a maintenance dose, and that's what I go for most often. It's kind of like therapy in a way. Yeah. So let's see. Let's head back over to the chat real quick. So we're doing good. How's it going, everybody? How's it going over there? Oh shit, yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. Let me slow down a little. Haven't given a public speech in a long time, so I forgot some of the rules. Let's see.
So I like the idea that it sets you right.
Yeah. Yeah. If we want to talk about that a little bit, do you have any thing to add for that?
Well, I just think that it's really, a lot of times people have very complex reasons and they think they need complex reasons. But the way you phrased it was just kind of so simple and so easy that, yeah, sometimes I get a little off, and it just kind of puts me back into rightness, into alignment.
Yeah. Um, it's amazing how like it can be, several months before I even think about using them again.
Right.
And it'll I'll just like I'll have these like general like points in my life where like maybe I'm a little out of touch somewhere, or I'm not super present in certain areas of my life, and I start to feel that grating against just my emotions and my existence and stuff. And then
Hmm.
like a little light will go off in my head and be like, Mitch, you haven't tripped in months. You should check that out and give yourself a refresher. And then, I'll set aside some time, and I do. And it usually does exactly what I set out for, is that it brings me back into alignment, like you said. And it just, yeah, gives me this fresh breath.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I really love that. Um, I want to stress, because so many people in the world think that taking high doses is something like there's like people taking pride in taking high doses.
Hmm.
Um, and I want to let people know that there's no pride in it. It's something that if you do it and that's the way you like to do it, then that's great. And I love that you're able to do that for yourself. And if you reap benefit from that, that's wonderful. But that's not for everybody.
Right.
Um, and there's no real reason to push the envelope if you don't feel like you need to.
Right. And then also perhaps if you don't have the proper support,
Yeah,
like
of
for
course.
example, the talk right before this, there's a gentleman, Shane, who has a church, Native American church, and they do high doses.
Yeah.
Not everybody, he said not everybody, but there's people who sit in their ceremony who are doing 15 or 20 grams. But these are people who are doing that for God. They're doing that as a spiritual practice in
Yeah.
a community that is held by other practitioners. And they could have three or four sitters, three or four people who are sober, who are there to support, and other people who are on lower doses who are there and support in a very particular container around a fire with sacred herbs and a whole thing. And that is not necessarily even available to everybody.
No.
That kind of l- serious support.
That is, in that context, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Mhm.
Because they have the framework and the support to actually hold each other and hold the space for it. And so even within that small container,
Mhm.
it's like a cultural context that makes sense for a high dose like that.
Yeah.
Whereas, just any regular day, someone without that kind of support system going for 15 or 20 grams is probably going to go into, something quite serious.
Right. Whereas also thinking about how you build your relationship with anyone, right? So if the mushrooms have a spirit, if they have an energy, you don't need to you don't need to go all the way on the first date.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
recently been working with a couple actually, and working with them to learn to sit for each other. Sort of an older couple.
Yeah.
And you guys just take your time. Get used to your medicine. There's no rush. If you take a gram, one of you takes a gram, the other one hangs out. Great.
Hmm.
Next week, go a little higher. There's no reason to just kind of what's that great book called? Storming Heaven.
I haven't heard of that.
Oh, it's a great one of the like old school books about LSD.
Oh, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no need to storm heaven right out the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's see. Do we have any more questions in the chat here? We got anything going on? No. Oh, okay, yeah. So that's where that is. Okay. Let's see how we going over here. Took 12 grams. Will I be okay? They said I took 12 grams at 17. Will I be okay? Yes, you will be just fine. One of my favorite pieces, like one of my favorite things about psilocybin particularly, and not necessarily other psychedelics like LSD, is that with psilocybin, I get the feeling that you always come home.
Mm.
Whereas with LSD, I never came home and I had to rebuild my life. But that's, that's another story.
Right.
Um, with,
Well,
yeah,
no, you go.
okay. With the mushrooms, no matter how far out I've gone, and I'm kind of just reiterating here, no matter how far out I've gone, no matter how intense or scary it's gotten with me before, all I had to do was just not do that anymore. Just stop, take a break, and you come back to baseline.
I think the question, will I be okay, has like larger implications. We have to figure out what we mean by okay.
Yeah.
And also, I just wonder if, what are the other things that you're doing to try and make sure you're okay?
Right.
Are you taking care of yourself and doing, um, do you have a physical practice? Are you taking care of your body? Are you taking care of your nutrition? Are you reading and studying? The psychedelic life wants us to um, be the best we can be, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I just hope, like, and if you're young, you've got your whole life ahead of you. So like, I'm really a little jealous of the 17-year-olds and the 18-year-olds. And I would love to have that opportunity again to really try and create a life that had a strong foundation to be awesome for decades.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's an age old trope, right? Where we're like, if I had known. Hell,
Right.
even more specifically with psychedelics, if I had known, there was no information when I started using psychedelics. There was, 15
Right.
years ago, it was still the wild west of psychedelia. The internet had you had shroomery, which was nice, but everybody's advice was take an eighth and blast off. Um, and that's, obviously not anything that I would ever tell anybody to do who's just coming into it.
Right. We
Um,
didn't even have the shroomery.
yeah, you didn't have that.
All we had were like our parents' psychedelic rock albums. I
Yeah.
just kind of had to like see what the Beatles did.
Like if somebody could get a hold of a Terrence McKenna speech or something.
Right. Right. Yeah, we had a couple of Terrence McKenna books, and we had our like the Woodstock soundtrack.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, cool. All right. So I want to get in real quick. I want to touch on intention setting versus
Hmm.
doing it for pure enjoyment. Because I think there's value in both. I've stressed a lot before that a good way to, have a quality psychedelic experience is to set an intention, but I don't necessarily think that is the only way. Um, when it comes to setting an intention, I pretty exclusively take small doses because they give me more room for conversation with the mushrooms. I feel
Hmm.
like I'm able to just keep it right where I want it to be and talk about exactly what I want to talk about without other things like moving around in my brain. Um, if I'm going to trip for pure enjoyment, I tend to take a bit more, probably between 2.5 and 5 grams. Um, and this is usually if I'm, going out with friends or into the woods or desert. And this is because at higher doses, I'm not going to want to focus on an intention or a goal as much.
Hmm.
I just want to enjoy the experience. Now, I need to, preface the pure enjoyment part with that doesn't mean relinquishing your responsibility of the experience because you're always responsible for yourself in these situations. And if you go into it with a fuck it mentality, you're going to get it's possible that you're going to get a fuck it, like a fuck you out of it from the medicine. And that's something that you don't want. Like you can go out, you can have fun with it. You don't have to have a specific intention, but you do need to be respectful, humble, and responsible to both you and the mushrooms that you're using. And yeah, that's my piece on that. um, let's see. And I'm going to go over that a little bit more later. But I want to right now, I want to break into a section, just get into the main meat here of what I'm trying to talk about, which is my like trip tip and harm reduction, which is basically what I do on TikTok as well. Um, I want to go over some of these techniques for having the best experience. I know a lot of this stuff is going to sound just like life, But I don't think that's a mistake. I've had lots of people tell me like, oh yeah, that just sounds like life advice. Like, yeah, stay humble. Yeah, be clean or whatever. But
It, it's I just want to agree with all of that. I, teach a class on, meditation to support the psychedelic journey. And, I have to tell people, spoiler alert, this stuff works if you're not high too.
yeah. Well, people used to ask me what before I had developed, humility. People used to ask me what's tripping like, and I would say, it's just like normal life, but you're tripping. Which is pretty cheeky, but I'm gonna go into why I would say that. I I want to relate it here to a study within Judaism. I'm not a Torah scholar by any means, but one area of study, as I understand, comes to why was divine punishment so abrupt in biblical times, yet does not appear today. And part of the reasoning that rabbis have come up with for this is that because in those times, the people were far closer to God than we are now. And they basically, in the most layman's terms, should have known better. Whereas today, people are far further away and thus have, if like divine judgment were passed in that extreme, there would be no one left alive or not maimed, basically. Um, so this advice that I give for tripping, it's it sounds like normal life advice because for me, tripping is just like that, but amplified and more intense. The rules are exactly the same as they always are for the but the mental and emotional consequences and of actions or thoughts are like just more immediate. Um, so I'd say this is normal life advice, but you're in a way like closer to God. And I'm not trying to bring this as like a religious thing. It's just a pure
That's
analogy here.
that is so interesting because yeah, things you just go from like nirvana to samsara. It just like flips back and forth between heaven and hell like so fast.
Yeah, like your ramifications are quick and immediate.
Right? Instant
Yeah.
karma.
Yeah. So it's kind of like divine judgment in that way. Um, and so how we, avoid having more negative experiences is to start with a baseline of respect. And a lot of people think, well, how do I respect a mushroom? Like people don't even consider it, anything, right? It's like, oh, it's a drug or something. But what I want to stress is that you start with the baseline of treating it as if it is sentient, because in a lot of ways it is. Um, you respect your feelings, yourself, and your intuition around it. You think about how you feel. You can even imagine this little part of yourself that is the mushroom and ask it like what it wants out of you, right? Like should you take any at all? And your dosage and frequency of ingestion need to be carefully thought about based on how you feel like when you're talking to yourself about it. um let's see, how do we respect it more? Don't fight it. Don't let the conversation with it become an argument. We don't want to you don't want to yell at them because they'll yell right back at you. It's kind of a mirror in a way. um and yeah. Let's see, let's find some let's see what people are talking about. Oh yeah, go with the flow, surrender to the trip. Yeah, there's some confirmation going on over there.
One of my
Very
favorite
cool.
pieces of advice is all cars are real.
All cars are real. Oh yeah, that's I think we talked about that last time, right? That no matter what you think is real, the consequences are going to be the same.
Yeah,
um
if you feel like you can fly, try taking off from the ground.
yeah, exactly. Try just jump from the ground back onto the ground and then you'll
Mhm.
realize that you can't fly. I actually learned this once for myself while I was tripping way too hard alone in an unsupervised way and an irresponsible way. I had left a concert in San Francisco And I had driven up there by myself, and I was actually about to start driving home in the middle of the night, but I was still tripping, which, by the way, I never recommend this. These were the old days. Um, and I stopped in a bathroom, and for some reason, I was on you know what happened, and I'm going to go over this later. I got caught up in kind of a God complex, and I thought that I was telekinetic, and I found out very, very quickly that I was not telekinetic, and I was sitting in a bathroom
Mm.
trying to like make something come to me, and that was clearly not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. And
I'm
those,
sometimes a little psychic.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, it's just, it's easy to fall into grandiose feelings and things like that if you're not careful. Let's see. Okay. So, as far as good trips and bad trips go, um, I've heard a lot of people talking about, I hear a lot of people talk about either there's no such thing as a bad experience or a bad trip, or, and they call them difficult experiences or learning experiences, um, or B, it was necessary to have that bad trip or learning experience. And I don't really believe in either of those things, mainly because from my personal, because this is all anecdotal, right? Everything, I'm not a scholar. Everything I'm talking about is from personal experience. It has nothing to do with me studying books or anything like that. Um, I've had plenty of poor experiences that I just feel could have been completely avoided. And if there's any lesson there, it's just don't do it like that. And so I don't think that these bad trips or difficult experiences are necessarily there to teach you something other than, hey, you fucked up in your approach. And you could have learned the same lessons, but in a more calm and gentle way that doesn't like terrify you, basically. um so with better preparation, and again, not throwing caution to the wind, not saying fuck it, you have a far greater chance of having a good time and still getting the powerful experiences that you're looking for, because a lot of times people conflate something honestly terrifying and terrible to a powerful experience, when you can have super powerful, super positive experiences with the same effect, and you never had to go down those paths. Um, but to each their own. That's just my opinion on it. Let's see. Let's go into some preparation here. So, when you're thinking about tripping, guys, let's talk about where and with who, or day or night, or whatever like that. First and foremost, I'd say be in a place that you do not have to leave, somewhere safe. It's nice to have a big area that you can go in or outside, but if not, I'd prefer outside. Be with people you generally deem good people and you trust, not people you just met, because that's a good way to find out that your new friend is a prick, because they're not going to know how to be cool around that kind of situation. And it's not fair to put that on other people. If you're tripping and you end up falling on somebody else who you didn't ask for help, you want to make sure that you're getting consent from everybody involved, that they're prepared for the experience as much as you are. Um, let's see. Be clean. It's really nice to shower beforehand. It's not a necessity, but I find that just in general in life, it feels better to be cleaner, and that's just one less anxiety that you can have going into an experience. So if you freshen up beforehand, really, like, it, all of these things are to help you mentally and emotionally set up for the experience. It goes back to your setting. Um, and the name of this talk here, and I always stress this, everyone thinks it's silly, but remember to poop. Mushrooms are hard enough on the stomach as it is. It's easy to get stuck on the toilet. I've been stuck on the toilet for the better half of a trip before, just because I was staring at my knees and tripping in the bathroom, and it's not the best way to spend an experience, just sitting there, butt out. You're not wiping, excuse the crudeness, but you're just sitting there in your own filth, really. And that kind of thing can happen. So get it all out beforehand. It's okay to eat a little bit if you want to, but make sure that you just, you're setting yourself up for success. Um, we'll go back over and over again to humility, starting with humility. It's easy to think that you know more than you do when you're tripping. It's easy to think because you're getting all kinds of new information. Um, it's easy to let that get away with you. Just remember that, your way is not the way. Um, and this is something I have to remind myself as someone who gets asked tons and tons of questions, right, about mushrooms. I have to remind myself all the time that like I need to not be dogmatic about my approach because it works for me and it might not work for somebody else, yeah, anything you have to add to this? I'm kind of rambling on up here.
Well, I think that it's nice that, we're talking about preparation in some ways. Like,
Yeah.
take care of uh as many bodily needs as possible ahead of time. It's kind of like, once I made the mistake I was of eating like, I haven't eaten um like crustaceans in probably like 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
because I was traveling. I was on the coast. I was in a place where they do they do crustaceans. Like, oh, do you want this big plate of shrimp and other things and corn and the whole thing? And I was like, yes. And then that led into a journey. And then, the crustaceans got their revenge.
Yeah. Oh no.
A- And so so it's just like, the idea of fasting makes a lot of sense. The idea of, cleaning your house. I once had a client come to me. He did his first journey in the woods, and he came back and told me, good set and setting begins with clean socks. He
Oh,
hadn't
okay.
changed his clothes before the journey, and he had been in the woods for a couple of days. He was gross, and like, it came back to haunt him. And this is kind of what you're saying, is like, not all, some bad trips can definitely be avoided by taking care of stuff on the front end.
Absolutely.
Making sure that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, and as little is left to chance as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great. Also, when you are that prepared, just the general lack of anxiety that you have about
Mhm.
everything else around you is going to be way like your general anxiety is going to be way lower.
Mhm.
Just going into the experience.
Right.
But
And well,
yeah.
giving yourself like some kind of mundane tasks like that. But
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm gonna like clean the house as if a guest was coming to visit, right? Like treating the mushrooms like an honored guest. I'm gonna clean my house like a guest is coming to visit. And then it's just, there's a real, like, talking about anxiety, it's your body settles. Like, oh, this is a nice thing, because you might be anxious about the journey, you might be wondering how it's gonna go, but it's like, oh, I swept the floor.
Hmm.
you know I feel good. I swept the floor. I cleaned up the clutter piles. I feel it's a good thing to do, even if you're not high.
Yeah.
Clean the house.
You still feel better afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to can I steal that from you? The treating it as an honored guest.
Oh yeah, I got it from somebody else. I don't remember who.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's a perfect add-on to just, treating it like it's sentient. It takes it a step further.
Right.
Yeah. Um yeah, definitely
Yeah,
builds on that idea.
what would you wear if you were going to meet God?
Oh wow, yeah. Right?
Would you wear dirty socks?
No. I would wear clean, comfortable clothes is what I would wear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clothes that I could stand hanging out with somebody for eternity in.
Yeah. You don't have to be, yeah, I mean, it's God. You don't have to put on airs and be fancy. Like, he
No,
knows
he
you.
knows what you look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, comfy clothes, clean though, smelling good, smelling fresh. Like you're going out to the club but with less pretense.
Hmm.
Um cool. Oh yeah, I always want to circle back to this. If you guys are just starting out, or even for people who have been doing it for a while, it's okay to start low, 1.5 grams or less. It's okay to take a little bit, dip your toes in before you go for a big experience. I know we've gone over that time and time again, but I will always go over that there's no reason that you have to jump in with an eighth or 5 grams. You don't listen to Terrence McKenna and just go, I'm going to take 5 grams and lock myself in a dark room. He was a professional at that point, and it was a very different, situation.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you
Also,
think about so I'm going to start a
yeah.
death metal band.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, you know what the name of my death metal band is going to be?
I think you told me, but I can't remember.
Psilocybin tummy ache.
Oh no, you didn't tell me that.
Most hardcore thing I can think of.
That is pretty
So
hardcore.
so for people in the Zoom chat,
Yeah.
Slim has set up a TikTok live as well. So we're streaming in two places, and we're also getting chats from there.
Yeah, we
And
got two things going on here.
people have things to say about the psilocybin tummy ache, and I have some thoughts, but I'm wondering if you have some thoughts.
Actually, I do. I have here some remedies for it. I'm not saying that it's 100% effective, but I find that to avoid a psilocybin tummy ache, the the best way is to break down the mushroom as much as possible before ingesting it. Make it as easy on your stomach as possible. For me, grinding it up into a powder and putting it into pills, that's enough for me, because the fruiting body of the mushroom has been broken down into just smaller pieces, and your body just eats away at it faster and easier. For other people, I've never really done lemon tech, but I heard that works really well to like pre-digest with the acids in the lemon. um or also, gummies. All these companies now are selling like chocolates and gummies and stuff. All of that is mushroom in a form that's been really broken down, and it's just much easier on your system than eating whole mushroom matter. That stuff tends to sit pretty heavy in your stomach. And I would say tea as well, but tea is still, I think tea's a little harder and rougher because A, it hits faster and harder, and B, it's you're teeing the mushrooms. It's just directly mushroom to stomach. Still, you're still getting a lot of that to it. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the psilocybin tummy ache is a portal,
Really? And
and I'll
okay, so you've gone through it.
so I'll yeah, of course. So I'm really big into somatic work. And so I think that most of the things that we experience in relationship to psychedelics are psychosomatic,
Yeah.
which means that there's often a mental, emotional, subconscious component to it. So usually when we have pain, we just hate it. That's our instinct. It's like, oh, my stomach hurts. I hate it. I'm mad. Oh, why is this happening to me? Poor me. And then we're just like spun out,
Hmm.
right? Whereas all it is a sensation that you don't like. Right? That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's just there's a sensation, and then there's opinion about the sensation. And so if you can kind of take away the opinion about the sensation, and then it's like just go into the sensation, it's been my experience that it opens, and it's what I end up having is various kinds of spirals and pulsations and vibratory qualities and little, little zigzags, and that I can deal with. And then if I just spend time with those, then those start to just become light and energy and sound and color. And then all of a sudden I'm in someplace different. And sometimes um, a fear comes up, or a lack of worthiness to be loved comes up, or some sort of resistance to something else in my life comes up. And then all of a sudden, I am working with the stuff that has, as you would say, is keeping me from being right.
Yeah.
And so, like being a detective and trying to figure out why do I have it, like, what did I do wrong that I have a tummy ache? Is who cares? I want to just like experience the experience and see what can be revealed.
That's a really good way to look at it. I love that. Um, I I have not looked at it that way before. Um, but on a similar, less healthy vein, I know what you're
Hmm.
talking about. Where when I was in my early 20s, I could drink like a fish, and
Hmm.
there would be a time when I would get the spins, right?
Hmm.
And instead of just going, "Oh, my night's over," throwing up and passing out because I'm sicker than a dog, what I would do was, because I was really heavy into meditation at the time as well, was
Mhm.
meditate and like ride the spin upward.
Sure.
And I would just keep going upward and upward until like it shot me out into this like soft peak pink energy type feeling. And I would just come out like with this like really high, like feeling really light and almost in a way like in a like a pseudo enlightenment type of feeling, just riding the
Mhm.
wave of the spin in the way that like the alcohol itself acted as a conduit for a somewhat shamanic experience. It's not something that I would recommend trying, and it's not something that I actively would try to do, but I've also heard of alcohol shamans in like South America and stuff. I had an anthropology teacher who um went and saw one at one point.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
People will use substances to achieve change. You know,
Hmm.
depending on where your consciousness is at, you could do different stuff with it.
Absolutely.
I believe it. I'm not particularly good with alcohol. I mean, I don't know. I haven't had any in 20 years or so.
Yeah. Nowadays the hangovers are too bad to do that. So I keep it pretty, I keep it pretty light. Actually, let's touch on that for a second. So a couple months ago, I put up a video talking about how I use psilocybin to help redirect my relationship with alcohol, because after my
Right.
last relationship, I lost a stepdaughter, I lost a cat, I left a home. It was a lot of very big changes for me very, very fast.
Right.
I lost a partner, which, I was happy to get away, but I it's still that feeling.
Hurts. Yeah.
Um, and so I was just numbing it as best I could. Or sometimes using it to dive into it. I don't know. I have a very strange relationship with my mind and my heart where like I'm very honest with myself and I just go for it, you know. I
Hmm.
just whatever it is that I need to tackle, I tackle it in whatever way I can. But I realized that I was going way too hard with the alcohol. And so yeah, in January, I took a very small trip, very low dose, and just focused the entire time on redirecting my relationship with alcohol to stop using it as an immediate fix to those feelings, like an immediate way to dodge how painful those feelings were.
Right.
um and it worked. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It worked. I
Hmm.
immediately cut my alcohol consumption in half, which is still on the decline. It's back to, I've always enjoyed whiskey. I'm a whiskey enthusiast, so I have a drink or two, a couple times a week basically.
Hmm.
But I love that it doesn't affect me negatively, and as long as I can manage and handle that, that's great. But I want to speak to the power of the mushroom in that instance. That was the whole point of that, is that it is a powerful medicinal tool, and this goes back to setting an intention, because the intention for me on that trip was so clear and so defined that I could not ignore it. And there was only one visual aspect to that trip, which was like a straight line that was kind of like a train track, and at just one point it just broke off, like someone had pulled the lever and it switched the train to a different track. And that was
Hmm.
basically it. That was the confirmation right there. It was like watching my neurons change directions. um so yeah, and that again, that was not a huge experience. That was a gram and a half, I think, and that gave me everything I needed to move forward with what I was looking for at the time.
Mm,
Let's see.
very cool. Should I tell you about how I stopped drinking?
Yeah, tell me.
Um, well, I was a young guy and I was just drinking as much as I wanted all the time. And I
Yeah.
had been drinking for about 10 years, from about 14 to 24. And people were concerned, as well they should have been. And I went to see Phil and Friends and Bob Dylan at the Gorge at George Washington. I was
Hmm.
on kind of Bob Dylan, Phil Lesh tour. Phil Lesh, if you don't know, is the bass player for the Grateful Dead. And he had his own spin-off project
Oh,
after
cool.
Jerry died, called Phil and Friends. Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers was in the band. It was a great, great band. And so I was walking around grounds, a beautiful outdoor venue. The gorge has a gorge, kind of like Red Rocks has Red Rocks. And I was on an undetermined amount of LSD.
Oh,
I do not know. Um,
nice.
it was enough. It was plenty. And I ended up sitting down with a couple of guys who were doing shots. And so I did a couple of shots. I did like 2 shots of whiskey with those guys. And then the voices told me to wander on. Our conversation, ran its course.
Hmm.
And then the acid told me, the voice in my head, it was me or the acid or both, said, "You don't drink anymore. This is not the kind of person you are. It's like if you
Cool.
want to like eat psychedelics and expand your mind and do that, that's one thing. But like, you're not going to be the kind of person you want to be if you keep drinking." And I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's great.
And that was in the summer of 2000.
Okay. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And it's good you accepted it like that. That's kind of the biggest takeaway for me there, is that you just were like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
I guess
It's
that's
kind
what
of
it is.
ready.
Yeah. That was the tipping point then. Okay, guys, I want to go back to a little bit of harm reduction here. So something that no one, I don't think, ever says, but it's kind of like the same thing as a party, is if you've got people around you guys are tripping, or you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're tripping, lock up the car keys, um, put them away. Um, I've seen this personally go bad. Someone's trip went awry, and this person was physically way stronger than me. It's like I could not detain this person if I wanted to. And he first, at first it seemed like he was going to be violent, and we were able to kind of slow him down off of that and talk him down off that ledge. But we were in the middle of nowhere, and he out of the blue jumps in his car, speeds off. We don't have any cell service, no communication. He's driving down the highway. He had a panic attack, pulled over, called the police on himself, and got a DUI. Um, and in retrospect, it was a good thing for him, because he's been completely sober since then. I didn't know that he was an addict, and that he was like slowly falling off the wagon in the time that we were hanging out, because I never saw him drink or anything, but I saw him smoke a ton of weed. And then, like, just that weekend, I saw him start drinking like quite a bit. And I was like, that's a little odd, but he doesn't seem, like, until like the trip happened. And me and him had been tripping together for a few months. So I didn't really have like a reason to believe that this was going to happen. But when it did happen, it was terrifying. And as soon as I got back to service, I got 10 calls from his girlfriend and his sister, and everyone's cussing at me because, I had, helped him get the mushrooms, and they're all like, he's an addict. And I'm like, I didn't know he was an addict. He never told me. This was never like, I hadn't known him for that long. So I didn't know his history. But the whole point of that is lock up the keys, because no matter what somebody's going through, there is no reason that while they are tripping, they should get in their car and drive off. And I'm sorry if I'm coming down a little hard about that, but I can't be more serious about it. It's so dangerous. Um, and let's lead that into when not to trip. Um, and this is
I
kind of
wonder if
what
anybody in Oh wait,
what do you
what's
look?
that? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. What did you had a thought?
Oh, my thought was we have 13 minutes left, and I was just wondering
Sure.
if anybody in the Zoom has a question for you or anything.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. If anybody in here's got anything they want to ask, I'm in the Zoom over here. Sorry on TikTok over there. I can't really see what you guys are saying. It's too far away from me. But yeah, anybody in the Zoom here.
Um, any certain food or drinks that make it a better experience?
Let's see. It's kind of what appeals to you. I like berries are really good for me. Like I love
I
like
was gonna say
blueberries
fruit.
and raspberries. Yeah, fruit, sweet things are really good while tripping. Um, I do enjoy, you know, maybe just like soda water. It's just anything that you feel like really drawn to as far as food wise. I would say, try it out, because it's usually a pretty exciting and fun experience when you're enjoying eating while tripping.
I would just suggest that you don't want to have to do a lot of cooking.
Yeah, you definitely things get like, especially when you're trying to do something like that, things can get really silly really fast, and you and your friends can just end up like bawling laughing in the kitchen trying to cook, or like, and then like something falls over. So it does, it's usually, you know, nothing bad ever happens, but it can be a real chore and a real task.
All right. So what about afterwards? Come down, aftercare, integration.
Sure. Let's see. So when I'm coming down, I I still prefer tripping in the daytime because I like coming down when the sun's up. Um, and the reason for this is just because sunset, what like on the backside of a trip, is really beautiful and it's very calming. So that's a good place to start. Is if you're new to it, like I would always recommend starting in the daytime just because it's so much calmer. Um, but as far as like reintegrating, you know, it's good. Like you'll feel like definitive points where it feels like the trip is ending, and it'll probably feel like that a few times because you'll get a couple of waves on the way out. Um, and you start to like take more notice of your breath. You can start to feel like you're more in your body again, you know, especially if it's a bigger experience. You feel, you just feel yourself, your body, your breath. Take a, you know, have a good glass of water. It's nice at this point. Like I always find toward the end, especially if I'm with people, I like to, you know, find a good place to hang out and talk to people, eat a little bit, a little bit of food. Um, Kind of explore how the experience was for everybody. You know, everyone, you guys kind of all end up coming to this place collectively, and you'll see how it kind of like ebbs and flows, but then it'll slowly fade away. Um, if you're done, I mean, if you're alone, kind of the same thing. I figure out a way to hang out with myself. Like toward the end of a trip, I'll often spend a little bit of little bit of time in a mirror, like giving just self-love to myself, literally telling myself that I love you. And that's something that is always just really nice. It's just really nice for me, you know, do that. Then like maybe, you know, just change where you are a little bit. Don't drive, I mean, but you know, like go somewhere else in the area that you're in, experience something a little different to take you into a different mindset. Just all of these things that can help you just slowly start to like massage your way back into normal life. If it's at nighttime, it's really nice, you know, to, if I'm sitting by a fire, I like to have either a beer or a glass of whiskey and just sit there with it in the fire and focus and just enjoy it. And you get a lot of good, deep laughs in this time. I mean, at least I have usually is on the backside of a trip. I'll find myself talking with friends in just deeper, more empathetic and more like profound ways than before the trip, than before we went in, before we all like had this experience together. And so yeah, that's, I mean, that's most of what I do when I'm reintegrating, you know.
What about like in if there's things that need to be integrated in the days or weeks to come?
Sure. Well, it is important to pay attention to the lessons that you've received. Um, Especially, you know, if you had an intent, or not especially, but you know, you had an intention and you want to pay attention to what you got out of that, or you just received messages that you know that you need to pay attention to. Um, you want to, these things will pop up, especially over the next couple weeks, until eventually they do fade away. If you're not, you know, using those lessons to actively change your life, you'll go back to the way you were, you know, basically entirely. Um, but it's important to pay attention. Always pay attention. Listen to yourself. Listen to what the mushrooms told you. Use those lessons as a way to navigate your life in a better direction, if that's so what was called for. Um, if we're talking about, you know, in the weeks to come, if we're touching on things like maybe HPPD, where you continue to see visuals like a week or two later, again, I wouldn't worry so much about it. Those things tend to go away. You just don't do it anymore. Like if you're bothered by something like that, um, just lay off, relax, know that everything's gonna be fine. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't have a whole lot prepared for that question, but that's where I'm off the top of the head on that.
That was great.
Um,
And then it just reminds me of our 17 and 18-year-old friends.
yeah,
It's that there is this period after the trip where you're a little bit more impressionable. It's things are a little bit newer and fresher, and it's a really good time to set up good habits.
absolutely.
Like there's science behind it, about the default mode network is shut off, and there's all of these new synaptic stuff happening. And I'm not really a brain scientist, but it's generally the deal. And if you set yourself up for success, you can end up really, really happy about it, and it can really bear fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Um, there's some more,
you got some more
maybe one more.
questions
Did
here?
you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I've got one more thing that I really want to touch on here.
Yeah.
Um, and it regards legalization coming up.
Yeah.
And I've posted about this before, but I always want to reiterate this. So I am cautiously optimistic for the legalization, because I do want this. I don't think any of these things should be illegal. But I am concerned when seeing them being treated like marijuana, both in regards to potency and propaganda.
Hmm.
Where like species like albino penis envy have been so genetically bred now to be so much stronger than even the strongest wild mushrooms, which are psilocybin. And it's kind of scary. They even feel a little chaotic when I've taken them before. I definitely prefer mushrooms that have not been like hyper specialized to just be potent, because I don't think they need to be more potent than they are. You can always take, you can't take less, but I shouldn't be taking half a gram and experiencing what a half eighth feels like. Um, other than that, other than like psilocybin not being able to kill you, it's not like THC. You know, we have less of a modern history with it as well, so there's just less like cultural understanding in our modern culture. I'm not talking about throughout human history. This coupled with inherent danger of psychedelic misuse worries me, because misuse can happen. We didn't get to touch a lot on that. We touched more on the positive aspects of how to set up and not misuse, but misuse can happen. In another talk at any other point, I'd be happy to go over those things. I just want, I don't want especially young people, thinking mushrooms are a miracle that will fix all of their problems. Because its value is undeniable, but it's still a tool that can cut you. It's something that is dangerous if used the wrong way, and it's not dangerous in the way that it's gonna like hurt you, like physically. But again, I've seen people do reckless things with it before, and it can be bad. I've done reckless things with it before. It took me a long time to get to a place of responsible use, and I had nobody to tell me what to do with it. Um, anyway, I think that's all I really wanted to say on that. I just, I'm always for the legalization of it. I just want people to be careful. That's kind of my entire goal here, is to express that people use them responsibly, so that we can move forward and be healthier and safer with something that I think is one of the greatest gifts we've ever been given by nature.
That's a really nice note to end on. Um, Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for closing out the jam in such a fun way.
Cool, man. Thank you for having me. I'm super stoked. I'm super happy that you had me come on. I'm like, just thank you so much. I appreciate what you're doing. It's really cool, man.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to connect and spend some time together. And for those of you on TikTok who don't know who I am, my name's Daniel. I run an organization called TAM Integration. We've got a conference all weekend. If you go to 2023.integrationjam.com and use coupon code SLIM, you can save 10% on the ticket. And there'll be more talks. There's another, 20 hours of talks over the weekend, 15 hours over the weekend.
You're going all the way
And
till Monday, right?
we have some post-conference intensives on Monday.
Oh, cool. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, you guys check that out. I'm sure it's going to be insightful. There's tons of different speakers he's got on there. It's really cool to see this coming to fruition because, again, we're you and I here. We're on, all of us in this space are. It's right at the beginning of something that's kind of like a whole new future direction in society, and I'm really, really stoked to see where it goes. I just, again, want everyone to be safe.
Thank you for reminding us that that we're right at the beginning of it.
Oh yeah, we are definitely right at the beginning.
That's a good reminder, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's
sometimes it already feels like a long time.
well, there's people like, you've been doing this for years, right? And I haven't been doing like any sort, I guess this is like a pseudo form of activism, right? But I haven't been doing this forever. I've, 2
You're an
years,
activist, man. You're great.
about 2 years now I've been doing this. But
Mhm.
that's the thing, like when I popped onto TikTok, nobody had seen this before, and so that's why it kind of popped off really quickly. But
Right.
that's the thing, it's right at the beginning, and in a couple of years somebody else would have done what I'm doing just like this probably. It's something
Yeah.
that would have happened.
Well, the thing is, actually, now that you mention it, I've been doing what I've been doing for however long. This is actually TAM Integration's like 5th anniversary party.
Wow, that's awesome.
So thanks, so thanks for coming to the party.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, shit. Thank you again. Let's talk again soon. I'm looking forward to whatever you're doing next, and I hope that I can help in any way and be a part of it.
All right. You rock, man.
You rock.
And everybody on both my stream over here and then the stream over here, thank you for being a part of this.
You guys
We will
rock.
see you bright and early in the morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Lindsay Branagh from Cambridge in Cambridge, England, is going to be talking about the Earth as integration companion. So we have
Oh,
an
that's neat.
awesome weekend. So grab your tickets and join us. And then after that, we actually have Sam Gandy and do you know Ian Bollinger? Do you know the guys at Hyphae Labs?
I've met them, but I don't know them personally, really.
Yeah. Yeah, Ian's an old friend, and they're doing some of this testing that you're talking about. So they, Sam and Ian are going to be talking about the differences between different strains and
Cool.
things like that.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
And so a lot of great content. And you have a ticket, with your email address, you should be able to log in. So join us anytime you want.
Cool.
Even
Yeah.
join as your alter ego if you feel like it. We will never know.
Sure. I mean, I'll come in on. I can probably pop in on Sunday. I'm going to the Ren Fair tomorrow, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
Oh,
But
can't compete with Ren Fair.
I mean, I can't. It's been planned for a long time.
No, I love that stuff. That stuff's super
Yeah.
fun. Um, uh, and we lost him. All right. Everybody have a good night. Much love. I'll see you in the morning.